Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Clean Energy View radio show. Our podcasts are available on iTunes, Zune, and you can also visit our website at www.cleanenergyview.com. If you have any questions for our guests, there are many ways you can contact the show. You can post a question on our wall on Facebook, Skype us, or contact me directly at June Stoyer on Twitter. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at info@cleanenergyview.com. Today, my guest is Dan Chiras, and we're going to be talking about his best-selling book, The Homeowner's Guide to Renewable Energy. Are you ready to slash your home energy costs while dramatically reducing your carbon footprint? Well, his book, The Homeowner's Guide to Renewable Energy, Achieving Energy Independence Through Solar, Wind, Biomass, and Hydropower, is packed with the most practical and affordable methods to significantly improving your home's energy efficiency. Now, there are so many different areas that we can talk about today, but I think you'll enjoy in this book the fact that there are so many different subjects that he covers. One of the biggest issues, especially here in the Northeast, is wood heat. There's so many different options out there, so many different products that are on the market, and it is quite overwhelming to a homeowner. And then for some of the other states or just in other parts of the world where you need to take a look at different cooling options, that's also something that is an overwhelming industry where there's so many great choices, but at the end of the day, you have to take a look at what makes the most sense, what's most economical, and also what options utilize the least amount of energy. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about in today's show. So I would like to welcome to the show Mr. Dan Chiras. Good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, should I say. You're in
yes,
California.
Yes. We're in Missouri right now.
Oh, Missouri. How about that? See that?
Yeah.
And I'm in New York.
11 o'clock here.
Oh, wow. That is a very early morning for you. And, you know, it's really wonderful how technology is just the greatest tool that we have to get the information out to everyone. It doesn't matter where they're located, whether they're in Europe, Australia, South America, or, Africa. I mean, it's just amazing that in this day and age we have this technology where we can connect directly with people, and it doesn't matter what their economic situation is, but give them the information that people are really seeking that just isn't available so as readily as we'd like it to be. So I'm so grateful that you're taking time out of your schedule to come on the show today to share some of the expertise that you have with our audience so that they can really take a look at either the energy solutions that they're currently using, or if they're looking to renovate their homes, incorporate other technologies that will not only help them to save money but also reduce their carbon footprints. So thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure.
Now, before we begin, I know how great you are, and I am looking forward to meeting you at the upcoming Mother Earth News Festival in September at the Seven Springs Resort. But you are such an accomplished educator. Could you please share with our audience about your work and also about some of the books that you've written as well?
All right. Well, sure. I started out kind of on a conventional path. I did a doctorate in reproductive physiology, and I was accepted to medical school, but it was during that time that I became intensely interested in the environment, and I decided not to go to medical school. I took a teaching position at the University of Colorado, and I was very, very fortunate that had a lenient department chair who let me research and teach all this interesting stuff on energy and environmental issues and sustainability. And so after 4 years of teaching, I left the university and began a writing career. And since that time, I was in 1980, and since that time I've published actually 30 books, most of them on the environment, sustainability, sustainable development. And in the last 12 years or so, I've just focused all my attention on something we call green building and green energy technologies, and I've published a couple dozen books since 1980 since in the last 12 years on solar electricity and wind energy and all kinds of things, green building, natural building, and right now I'm currently the director of the Evergreen Institute, which is a center. We have a center for renewable energy and green building where we teach students. We have lots of hands-on workshops in green building, natural building, and all the renewable energy technologies. And we actually have teach students, mostly adults, students who are older individuals who are either interested in getting into the field, getting into becoming an installer, becoming a builder, a green builder, or improving their green building skills, or becoming a solar installer. And we also get an awful lot of homeowners, people who are exploring their options. And that's really the reason I wrote that book, The Homeowner's Guide to Renewable Energy, because there's so many technologies, and I realize it gets very, very confusing for someone. I've had people look at my solar system and say, gee, that's great. Now, how much hot water does it produce? And I say, well, no, that's a solar electric system. And they kind of look at me puzzled, like, oh, well, so how much hot water does it produce? And saying, well, those are two different technologies. And so that's the reason I wrote that particular book and many of the other books, is just to help people clarify what their options are. And June, you're absolutely right. There are so many options. And probably one of the most important things I can say today is much of what's out there is very, very affordable and makes really good economic sense in the short term and in the long term. So that's what's so exciting, is the cost of solar electricity and some other technologies has come down dramatically, and making it, this is a technology whose time is here. And I really encourage people to look into some of these things like solar hot water and solar electricity and micro hydro, which we can talk about more in detail shortly, but they make really good economic sense. If you want to reduce your carbon footprint, you want to save money, this is really the time to get involved.
Thank you. The first question that I have is in regards to the actual terminology. For example, with green building, there are so many terms that people are familiar with, but they don't quite understand what the sincere definition is. And I found this to be very true with the organic industry, where, the word natural could mean so many different things. Mm-hmm. So it's really important for experts such as yourself to say, okay, this is what this word means, and this is how you should define it when you're using it as far as your own personal needs, with just looking at how you can reduce your energy consumption in your home environment. So could you please start off with just defining a couple of the key terms, such as energy efficiency?
Okay. Well, energy efficiency, there are actually two ways. I think of energy in this way. I think of energy conservation. There are things that we can do around the house, like simply shutting off lights, turning off TVs when we're out of the room, turning stereos off, and turning the thermostat down. They're behavioral things that we can do to save energy. So that's what I call energy conservation. Energy efficiency are all the technologies. That refers to the technologies that do work for us but use less energy. A more efficient light bulb. It gives us the same amount of light as a less efficient bulb, but it uses the same. It produces the same amount of light, but it uses less energy. One of the new LED television sets, for example, instead of using 200 or 300 watts, uses 40 or 50 watts, and you get the same quality. So energy conservation is really things that I see that we can do, like turning off light switches, behavioral things that we can do, walking to the store that's 2 blocks down the road to pick up a gallon of milk or whatever. And, that's energy conservation. And efficiency is just, building things, making things that use energy a lot more efficiently.
Thank you. In regards to the term green building, can you please define what that means, and also what homeowners should really look for when it comes to hiring a private contractor or anything to do with that particular industry that may be of value as far as tax credits or any type of other initiatives?
Okay, sure. Green building is one of those terms that, like you said earlier, June, is very confusing to people. What exactly is it? Some people think, well, it's like building your house out of recycled materials. But, I teach classes on green building, and I've written several books. I have a book called the Green Home Improvement, for example. It has 65 projects that people can do around the home to green up their act. And really, green building refers to every part of construction. And we'll just deal with residential right now. But the same pertains to whether you're building a skyscraper or a factory or an office building. But green building really includes everything from selecting the site, where you put this site to have minimum impact, to all the way through the process, every single part of the process. How we energize the home, how we power the home, how we, the kinds of windows we use, the kinds of flooring that we install, the materials that we use, the paints and stains and finishes, the roofing material. And it goes all the way through the whole process, even up to the very end when we get done with a building and we revegetate the site, we rehabilitate the site. So green building really includes everything that has to do with building a building, period. And what it means is finding ways that are better for the economy, ways that make sense economically, for example, to the homeowner, building a house that uses a fraction of the energy, for example, of a standard home. That's certainly good for the personal economy. We want products that make sense economically. We want to use products and technologies that make sense economically in the short term and the long term. So there's that green component, which is the money component. It's also good for the environment. We're using recycled materials, for example. We're using technologies that rely on renewable energy rather than fossil fuels. So we're treating the building site, for example, in ways that protect the environment. We try to minimize the damage or eliminate the damage. So it's good for the economy. It's good for the environment. So green, that's what people think about green historically or traditionally. It's just environment, but it's a lot more than that. It's about the economy, and it's good for people too. We build houses that are made from materials that don't outgas or give off toxic chemicals. We use paints and stains and finishes, for example, that don't, for weeks after the house is built, give off these toxic chemicals that the inhabitants breathe. So that's what we call the triple bottom line, June. We're building houses that are good for people, they're good for the planet, and they're good for the economy. They make sense from that triple bottom line. And that's truly what green building is. It's a very rich concept, much more than just, putting in recycled carpeting or, using some energy-efficient light bulbs. It has to do with every aspect of building, from site selection to the site rehabilitation, everything in between, And it has to do with the materials we use, where we place the building, how we orient it, and where we put the windows, for example, so that we can capture that natural that low-angled winter sun to heat our homes. Everything about the building to make it better for people, for the economy, especially our personal economy, and for the environment.
Thank you. When it comes to selecting a contractor, say if you're going to go that route instead of doing the home renovation yourself, are there any particular certifications that would indicate that the contractor is really a high quality or has a high quality business or works for a high quality company that is genuinely concerned about the very issues that you just explained? And also, are there any tax incentives that a homeowner can look towards in order to facilitate some of these processes? I mean, when you're doing home renovation, it's extremely expensive no matter where you live, and even something minor could wind up being a huge expense. And especially with today's economy being what it is, people are trying to cut corners left and right. So the more information that people have before they make those selections, I think, is very important.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's tackle the builder first, because there are a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, we're green builders," and and maybe a little bit green. And that's something I should have said earlier in defining green building. green building occurs on a continuum. You can do a few things and you could call it a green building, or you can do a lot of things and call it a green building. And the same thing with builders. A green builder can maybe do one or two things. Maybe they make the home more energy efficient, but that's not enough. Or maybe they use a couple green building materials. So we really, my personal bias is to push the envelope. We only have one planet Earth, and we need to treat it carefully. We're passing it on to our children. It's our legacy. What we do to the Earth, they certainly will experience. They certainly will either benefit from our care or suffer from our lack of care. And so my bias is to push the green envelope, to make it as dark green as possible, to do as many things that are green. So that's the first thing I want to caution anybody who's thinking about building a new home or renovating, is make sure that the person is truly green, really, incorporates green materials and green technologies. Make sure that they really do it. And one way to find out, you asked about certifications. One way is if they're involved with LEED. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Building and Environmental Design. And it's the U.S. Green Building Council, which is a nonprofit group here in the States, and I'm sure they've gone global. And the U.S. Green Building Council has a program for green building, and again, whether it's office buildings or factories or homes. So they have a program, and it's very, 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 very detailed, very inclusive, includes all aspects, as I said earlier, that pertain to green building. So if you can find a builder who is involved with the U.S. Green Building Council, maybe has an architect who is LEED AP, that's a LEED accredited professional, these are the people that are going to get you a truly green home. Not someone who's just jumping on the bandwagon because it's the latest buzzword, or they think they can profit from saying they're green. And so that's what I would look for. I look for someone who's associated with that. And then when you talk to folks, be a little careful. If they say, "Oh, sure, I'll do that. I can do that." Then what we find often, and what people tell me is when they're working with builders, is they'll do a few green things, and you propose this and you propose that, and they go, no, we can't do that. That won't work. And what they're really telling you a lot of times is that they don't know how to do it, or they don't want to be bothered with it. So you really want to be very, very careful up front and get a list of the kinds of things that they do. Don't just let someone say, "Hey, I'm a green builder," but tell me, what does that mean to you? What do you do? Do you use recycled carpeting? Do you use non-toxic paints and stains and finishes? What's the insulation level in your buildings? What kind of windows do you install? Do you work with solar energy? Do you actually include this? And check out their references. Check out the references and see the work they do, and make sure that they really, really are green. We don't want to suffer with this greenwashing. And now, what was the second question you asked? I got off on that. I forgot the first question. The second question.
That's okay. In regards to tax incentives,
where
can homeowners look to see what the latest tax incentives are, or any other type of rebates or incentives to incorporate these types of energy reduction technologies or just changes in their home environment?
Okay. This is a bad year for tax incentives. A lot of the energy efficiency tax incentives ended in 2011 here in the United States. This is a federal tax credit for installing, just about anything, insulation, a more efficient water heater, just about anything you did to your house. Those tax credits ended in 2011, and there's been no push that I can see, no effort to renew anything for 2012. But now, that said, homeowners should look to their local utility, and a lot of utilities will give you some tax incentives if you insulate or if you install a more efficient water heater or a more efficient appliance of some sort. So check with your local utility to see if they give any rebates. And sometimes they're not really huge, but it's $50 or $100, and if you're looking at a $900 appliance and they're going to give you $100, what the heck, let's take it. So call the utility directly and ask them. The other place to go for information, there's a website, and it's got a long name but a very short web URL. So I'll give you the name, and then I'll give you the URL, which is much easier to remember. But it's the database on state incentives for renewables and efficiency. Okay, so the database on incentives for renewables and efficiency. The website is www.desire. Now, that's spelled D-S-I-R-E. Don't put the E in there. You'll end up somewhere where you don't really want to be. www.desireusa.org. And in that website, we'll give you a map of the United States. Click on that map, and that map then will give you information about all the incentives that are available, and it may list your city and see if there are incentives in your city or your county from your utility, and that's the best place to go. Now, that said, there still are incentives for solar and wind and geothermal systems. Those incentives run till 2016, and it's a very, very generous 30% federal tax credit for solar wind systems and solar electric and solar hot water systems. And that's huge. I mean, 30% federal tax credit is a huge reduction off, like on a solar electric system. That's a huge reduction on systems that are already very, very cheap. So be sure to check that. Check into that 30% federal tax credit, and it's good till 2016. Now, some utilities like Ameren in St. Louis, for example, and other major utilities also give rebates for solar systems as well. So check into your local utility if you're thinking about putting a solar electric system. It's amazing if you own a business. It's amazing the incentives you can get. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, if you live in a rural area, has a 25% grant program for efficiency as well as solar. There's a 30% federal tax credit. Businesses are allowed to get an accelerated depreciation, which drops the price by another, depending on your tax bracket, 15 to 30%. And if there's a utility rebate, you can actually get a solar system for nearly free if you qualify for those things. If you've got a utility rebate, you can get the USDA grant, federal tax credit, and the accelerated depreciation. So look into it. Be very careful and look into these things, and you can find that these incentives will drive the cost down, making it very, very affordable, extremely affordable.
Now, in regards to saving money, what are some of the technology, the easiest, I'm trying to word this properly, what are some of the technologies that are available, whether it's solar or microhydro, wind, whatever the energy is, what is something, or what are some of the options that homeowners have where they don't necessarily need to hire a professional that has all these certifications and whatnot, but they can actually do the installation themselves without having to be an expert?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And I advise people that before you even put a solar system in, say you want to do solar electricity or a solar hot water system, the cheapest, the most cost-effective and the quickest way to reduce your utility bill is through efficiency and conservation. Just putting in those crazy little compact fluorescent light bulbs. And one of the most important things I could advise people around the world, anyone, is hire an energy auditor. It might cost you $500 or $700, and they'll come into your home and do a complete and thorough energy audit to find out where you're wasting energy, where you're losing energy. They'll make very detailed recommendations for you, and that's the very first thing. And they do something called a blower door test. And what it is that they put a big device, this big fan device, on your front door, and they suck the air out of your house. And now it doesn't implode on you, but what it does is it pulls air in from the outside through all the leaks in the building envelope, in the walls and the ceiling and in the floor, for example. And it tells them how leaky your homes are. And believe it or not, the average home in the United States is so leaky that if you added up all the little tiny cracks and holes in the walls, in the ceiling and the roof, it'd be equal to a window, that 3-foot by 3-foot window open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So our homes are extremely leaky, and that one of the first things we should do is seal up those leaks with caulk and weather stripping, and that's a very, very cheap thing to do. So it's not as sexy as putting solar system up on your roof, but it's very easy to do, very economical, and it will improve the energy efficiency of your home and make it a lot more comfortable immediately. I mean, you get the benefit immediately, and the cost outlay is almost nothing. So seal up those leaks and then add insulation. And most of our houses are woefully under-insulated. And the energy auditor will advise you. They'll tell you where the leaks are, and they may actually seal them up for you. And they'll tell you where you need insulation. They'll tell you if you need to replace old appliances that are robbing you blind, like old refrigerators and so on, that just use so much energy compared to the new ones. So, June, that's where I'd start. First things first, let's seal up the leaks in those homes of ours and those businesses. Let's add insulation. Let's get rid of those old energy hog appliances and TVs and light bulbs. And that alone could knock your energy bill down by 25, maybe even 50% before you even add solar. Now, once you do that, then you can put in a much smaller and less expensive solar system. So it saves you a lot of money immediately, makes your home a lot more comfortable, and put in a much smaller solar system to meet your needs. So that's where I'd start. And June, I don't know if you want me to talk about, installing solar systems yourself, because that's a little trickier, to be really honest with you. Solar electric system is not something I would advise any person to do without some training, and that's one of the things that we offer at our center. Is we have courses on solar electricity, and we start with the basics, and we teach the theory and the science behind them and all the components and how they work, and our classes go all the way through some installs. So I wouldn't advise anybody to run out and put a solar hot water system on or a solar electric system without some serious training. It's generally something best left for the professionals. And like I said, though, the prices have come down so much, and that federal tax credit knocks 30% off most of these systems, so that actually makes it affordable to have a professional come in and do it.
In regards to some of the solar technologies, for example, some of these solar panels, I have been to so many events and trade shows and whatnot where the people that are selling the equipment will say, anybody can do this. But as you pointed out, some of these technologies that they're selling, you have to be careful. You can't just go about it blindly. You really have to have a certain amount of knowledge before you begin doing anything, because what I found is that the average experience with people who have no idea what they were doing, they learn the hard way, and what's not advisable is the fact that when you do it without having any type of professional guidance, it always means that you're wasting money, and it's just not something that many homeowners can really afford to do at this particular point. So are there any types of solar technologies that you think are more suitable for someone who is more of a novice as opposed to a more seasoned homeowner who has done a significant amount of repair and work on their home?
Excuse me.
Sure.
Well, you can mix some solar hot air collectors. That's a technology. And Mother Earth, excuse me, got a frog in my throat. Mother Earth News has had some articles on that. What I would recommend is for people that are do-it-yourselfers, get a subscription to Home Power magazine, and absolutely the best magazine in the world. Okay,
and
it's just Home Power magazine. It's just full of articles on solar, and you can and get the last couple of years and just start reading. And Mother Earth News publishes a lot of do-it-yourself stuff too. And really, when it comes down to it, there are a few things that I think I'd say, okay, give this a try. You can make your own solar hot air collector. Now, June, what that is that's basically a box that you mount on the south side of your house, or maybe you build a rack system on the south side of your house. It's a box, and you circulate. It's got a black interior, glass covering, insulated, and you can circulate with a low wattage fan. You can circulate hot air. Not hot air. You can circulate air from your house. You have to punch a hole in your wall. Be very, very careful about that. Put a hole in your wall and run a pipe from the inside your home through this into this box. And the box has a fan in it. That pipe has a fan in it. It blows that air in, and as it travels through the box, through this solar hot air collector, it heats up, and then it delivers hot air into your home. And it can actually heat the air. My experience has been anywhere from 30 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
So you can get a very significant increase in your room air. Now, that's a fairly simple technology that a homeowner could tackle. I wouldn't recommend that someone without good electrical knowledge and construction experience even think about installing a solar electric system. And in June, one of the big issues too is safety. If you're working up on the roof, you really need to know what you're doing. And there are issues with shock and fire, where when you're working with these solar systems, it's direct current electricity. And you can get a pretty significant shock if you don't know what you're doing. So they don't want people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say a lot of people don't realize that. Yeah, you're working with a live current, and you need to have protective gear on. You can't just go out there in your flip flops and go about.
Yeah. Well, and there's little tricks to the trade where you I don't want to get too technical, but little tricks to the trade where you do certain things when you're installing a system so that when you wire it, you don't have the potential for shock. And in addition, if you don't do it right, we have the potential for house fires. And so we just want to be very, very careful with that. Solar hot water systems, on the other hand, require plumbing experience, and you really need to be sure that you know how to solder and you get everything right. So that's certainly not for the novice. But there are so many places like our institute that will offer the training, and that's there's the Midwest Renewable Energy Association up in Wisconsin that offers a lot of hands-on training. There's Solar Energy International in Colorado that offers hands-on training, and out in California, I can't think of the name of it right offhand. There's a group in Hopland, California, Solar Living Institute. There, it came to me, and they offer training. And it's the Evergreen Institute. We're here just 70 miles from St. Louis, and we have an excellent training facility with a lot of the technologies installed, so people can see them. And we have training. So that's where I'd say for the homeowner, get your training, spend some money on education, or very seriously think about getting a professional. Now, a homeowner can do the weather stripping and air sealing of their home, and that's why I wrote the book Green Home Improvement. It's really 65 projects, and it tells people how to do them, how to apply weather stripping, where you need to apply it, how to do your own home energy audit, how to add insulation, what kinds of insulation, how to improve the efficiency of your windows. So that's actually, I sound like I'm selling my book, but that's a great place to start. That project will save you thousands and thousands of dollars in energy costs. And once you've done that, then start looking at the solar technologies.
Yeah, I agree. The Green Home Improvements book is so incredibly important because especially here in the Northeast, the weather has warmed up. People are outside performing all sorts of home renovation, and a lot of people are very interested in saving as much energy as possible, because the bottom line is that when you have even the slightest crack in a doorway, that is basically contributing to the amount of energy that you need to use in order to heat your home in the winter and keep your home cool in the summer. Now, having said that, do you have any advice for people that are looking at different options for cooling systems, especially that utilize alternative energy?
Well, there's where we run. That's where we don't really have a whole lot to offer. Let me say this: there are some fancy solar cooling technologies, but basically what we do is we really recommend passive cooling. And here's what I tell people: is anything that you do to make your home more energy efficient is going to keep it warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. So all those things I've been harping on, been talking about, all of those energy efficiency, energy conservation measures will make your home cooler. Planting trees around your yard will shade it. There's an awful lot of things we can do to passively cool our houses. And then when it comes to some specific technology, no. But there are some pretty efficient cooling systems out there if you're in a desert climate, a dry climate, not just necessarily desert, but if you're a climate with low atmospheric humidity, the evaporative coolers are very, very efficient, much, much more efficient than an air conditioning unit. If you're in a climate with a higher humidity, there are some extremely efficient air conditioning units. There are these units called air source heat pumps, and they actually are heat in the winter and cool in the summer. They're very, very efficient, extremely high efficiency rates, and they're called mini splits. They have one outdoor unit, and then you place indoor units in each room and up on the wall, mount them on the wall. So here's what I recommend to people is, okay, make your home energy efficient, follow all the guidelines for passive cooling, like plant trees in your yard to shade your home, paint your house a lighter color, use shades, install energy efficient windows, all those things that make your home more efficient. Then you can put a solar system on it and power that mini split, that air source heat pump with your solar system. That's as close as we're going to get right now with the actual renewable energy technology that cools a home.
It's just amazing all the different things that people can do, and people are making the effort to take a look at what's going on in their home environment, make these changes, because they know that we need to reduce the energy consumption. One way or the other, whether you are concerned about the environment or not, the bottom line is that it's going to cost you one way or the other. And people are really starting to take a sincere interest in these very issues and make the necessary changes, or hire a professional, whatever they might opt to do, because it's something that we all need to do. And
the utility companies continue to raise rates. The major utility in the St. Louis area, 6 years in a row, has increased rates by about 10 to 12% per year. The sun never changes. The sun never increases its rates. It's always free. And the price never increases. And the technology costs have been going down, which is really cool. So you're absolutely right, Jen. It's only going to get worse. If you're looking at your utility bill now and you're anguishing about it, it's only going to be worse next year, and it's only going to be worse the following year. It's just the utility rates, electric rates in the United States in the past 35 years have increased on average 4.4% per year for the last 35 years. And in some cases, some areas, they've doubled. They've been twice that. They've increased it twice that rate. But that's the national average here in the States. So this is the time, if you're interested in reducing your carbon footprint to help solve this thorny issue of climate change and acid rain and other issues, if you're interested in just the economics of it, if you're interested in independence, that self-reliance, which a lot of people are. A lot of people really gravitate to that idea of making their own energy, not having to sit down and write a utility bill at the end of the month. If you're interested in that, this is the time. Start with efficiency, and then I would really take a look at my book, The Homeowner's Guide to Renewable Energy, and read through that. See what your options are. Take a good look, and that book's pretty objective. I tried to be very, very objective. I'm not giving people blue sky. It's a good, solid look at the technologies, what's good about them, what's not, what works, what doesn't work, and that'll help people figure out what exactly they want to do. What do they want to tackle first? Is it solar electric they want? Are they in a good site for wind energy? Would microhydro, which is basically water power, hydropower on a small scale, would that work for them? What about a wood stove? Would that be the technology? And then which wood stove would be best? Which has the best environmental record? What's the cleanest and most efficient wood stove? What about pellet stoves? With solar electricity, just all those things.
Now, having said that, for our listeners that are in Australia, they're approaching their winter as we in the Northeast, or in North America, actually are approaching summer. So what advice do you have for folks that are approaching the winter season and are taking a look at some of these options regarding wood heat? I've heard all sorts of things about pellet stoves and different types of furnaces that use wood, that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So having said that, do you have any particular recommendations that you'd like to just mention to our audience when they're selecting a particular option?
Sure. If you're in an urban environment where they don't have a huge wood supply, the pellet stove is an ideal solution. Now, I'm not sure in Australia, but I do know here in the States, the pellets are made from sawdust. I used to live in Montana and near a sawmill, and in the old days, way back in 1981, they used to just burn that sawdust. It was just left over, and then these big incinerators, and it would burn for days and smolder and polluted the whole valley. And so the Forest Service said, well, how can we, one, prevent that, and two, how can we turn that sawdust into a usable product to increase its value? And so they came up with wood pellets for the pellet stove. And so it's an excellent way to use this waste material and put it to good use and not pollute these rural towns in Montana and other states that harvest a lot of wood for various reasons. So I really recommend the pellet stove in an urban environment. And the other thing, too, is it burns very, very efficiently and very, very clean, extremely clean. Now, if you're in a rural environment and you have access to wood, then it makes much more sense to go to a wood stove. I mean, we're here, our educational center is in eastern Missouri, and we're out in the country. We've got 60 acres and a lot of wood. We don't even cut trees down. We just have wood that limbs that fall and trees that fall down. So in our case, we have an amazing supply of wood. But choose your wood stove very, very carefully. You want to get the most efficient stove and the cleanest burning stove. So read that chapter in the book on wood stoves, but also talk to a lot of different suppliers to see what you think is the best. But always look for the most efficient and clean burning stoves.
Dan, thank you so much. There's so many different things that we need to talk about, so I look forward to having you come back at a future point on the Clean Energy View. And once again, your book, The Homeowner's Guide to Renewable Energy, is just magnificent. Just all the different options that you cover, and so much information for consumers that really are looking to not only reduce their energy consumption, but once again, save money. And you really need to think about the fact that there are new options that are proven, new options that are very affordable, and new options that you can even install yourself. So, just great information.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. and keep up the really good work. This is excellent stuff, and I wish everybody well.
Thank you, Dan. And, folks, please check out Dan's website. Actually, Dan, can you give our audience your website really quickly?
Yes. It's evergreeninstitute.org, evergreeninstitute.org.
Thank you so much. And, folks, thank you for tuning in. This has been June Stoyer with the Clean Energy View radio show. Have a great afternoon.